Hi everyone, welcome to this week's webinar on how to handle negative search results. My name is Sabrina and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Brand Yourself. Throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat bar, or if you're following along on Twitter, I have Patrick manning our Twitter feed, so tweet at us with the hashtag BYWebinar and we'll be able to answer your questions that way as well. So why is it so important to have a positive online reputation in the first place? Quite simply, your Google results are your new first impression. It's your resume, your business card, and your reputation all rolled into one. People are going to be looking you up under all sorts of circumstances, whether it's a potential client before a sales call, a business partner, or a potential investor during due diligence, maybe an employer who's looking you up during the hiring process, or even a date who's looking you up before they meet you for that, first initial meeting. The problem is that most people don't come across as good online as they should, or as good online as they do offline. One or more negative search results showing up for your name can have a massive impact on that initial impression for anyone who's looking you up. And it can make an impression for you before you even have a chance to really show who you really are or explain anything negative that might be showing up. Now, a negative doesn't necessarily have to be something as obvious as a picture of you drunk in a bathtub showing up online. Negative search results can happen to anyone, and they can happen to good people, and they do come in many different forms. Some of the most common ones that we see at Brand Yourself are definitely negative reviews. So sites like Ripoff Report, Yelp, Google Reviews, Piss Consumer, Glassdoor, basically any forum that allows someone to post reviews about a business or professional service provider. Frequently, we find with these types of sites is that they're posted anonymously, which can make it extra difficult to deal with since you don't really understand or know who's posting these things about you. Another thing that we see with negative search results that's pretty unfortunate are blog posts or even entire websites that are dedicated to tarnishing someone's reputation. So these are posts that are submitted from a revengeful ex-employee who's now bashing their employer, or an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend who's writing about how much that they hate their ex. Those are those types of results. We also see, negative press mentions, whether you were mentioned in an article that covers a less than favorable topic, or you were in trouble in college for underage drinking, and now that police blotter just won't go away years later. Press can definitely, linger for years in search engines. So we see that pretty frequently too. And then another one are comments in social media posts that are taken out of context. And it's unfortunate because, social media is meant to be social and a place for you to share your thoughts and, your opinions. But we see time and again, people are getting in trouble for something that they posted years ago, or something that they posted thinking that it was private. So now they're dealing with these comments that are showing up that don't fully reflect who they are, what they think anymore, and they're really harming their reputation because they're not showcasing, who they are as a professional. And then the last thing that we see, which, is pretty heartbreaking, are cases of revenge porn and other types of negative images. And if you don't know what revenge porn is, it's basically, when a couple breaks up, one of the partners decides to share, nude photos that were shared throughout the course of the relationship privately. They decide to then post them online as an act of revenge. And it is very heartbreaking and unfortunate, but we do see it all too frequently, and it can really, destroy someone's life. And then the last category, you might have, heard me go through these and thought, I don't have any of these showing up for me. I don't have a negative review, or I don't think I pissed anyone off enough to have something, written or posted about me. But you might fall into the last category. And Not to scare anyone, but you could fall into this category at any time. And that's what we call the case of mistaken identity, or where, someone else with your name is doing something negative that's resulting in, negative search results that's ranking for your name. Or, they have negative results that someone might mistake you for. We say this story a lot about our co-founder, Pete, but if you don't know it, basically he was in college and he was being confused for a criminal of the same name in Google search results. And it was a similar age range, a similar geographic location, and people really thought it was him. So unless you're really, working to build a positive online reputation, you can very well, find yourself under a case of mistaken identity with someone else with a negative result ranking for your name. So what are your options if you do have a negative result? And, I went through your questions and your comments from the registration page, and I did notice that a lot of you are here because you do have a negative. So I hope that, by the end of this, you can at least leave with a game plan for how you can tackle it. So the first thing that you can do is you can ask to have it taken down. If you do have something negative that's showing up, there is a way that you can appeal to whoever posted it to have them take it down. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to find out who owns the content. So who posted it online. And then you want to find out who owns the website that it was posted to. So in the case of a social media profile, it's usually pretty clear who owns the profile and who posted it. So it's whoever's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn profile it was. Sometimes you might have to do some digging if it's under an anonymous name or if it's under a difficult name that you can't really discern who it is. But for the most part with social media, you know who's posting the stuff about you. For some of those smaller websites, like a personal website or a small blog, you can usually find the contact information as simple as going to the contact information page. Some of these smaller blogs, they like to talk to, their audience and their user base, so they'll openly provide their contact information right there. If you can't easily find it, then you might be able to find out who actually registered the domain. And, the domain is that URL, so CNN.com or MSN.com. It's basically the address to the website. So you can go to a site like who.is and type in that domain, and it'll actually give you all the information that it has on the domain. So who owns it, their contact information, sometimes how long that they've registered the domain for. And you'll actually be able to, contact them directly from there. If you aren't able to access that information, sometimes when you register a domain, you can pay a little bit more to have that information protected. Then you're going to want to go to the hosting provider. So that's, your GoDaddy.com or your Hover.com. And you can also find out that information using who.is, and it'll tell you where that domain is hosted. For some of the larger websites, so I'm talking, big time websites, they usually have their own terms of service and their own team of people who are in charge of dealing with these types of issues. So simply access the terms of service, and there's usually some sort of indication there on who you should be reaching out to about this type of matter. So once you know who you should be contacting, you have the contact information for who owns the content, you're going to want to sit down and, write them an email. And just be a little bit careful that you keep your emotions at bay and write the email in a very professional manner. Provide a very clear explanation for what you want taken down and why you want it taken down. And also back it up. Make sure that you're taking screenshots of the content, that you're providing all of the relevant links. You want to make it easy for the person to understand what you're talking about, which in turn makes it easier for them to deal with the situation. I will say that, there are two issues with trying to get the result taken down. And the first, plain and simple, the person who posted it doesn't have to take it down. If someone wrote a bad blog post about you, or they posted something to Twitter or wrote a bad review, they were angry enough or emotionally charged enough that they took the time to sit down and write the post in the first place. So the likelihood of you getting that same person to take it down, I would say, is slim. It's not impossible, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, but it's probably not going to happen. Another issue with getting the result taken down is that the result will still be archived in search results. If you take it down today, it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be removed from Google results tomorrow. And also, you can't prevent it from being posted to other places on the web, or that same person just reposting it once the site took it down. The next thing that you can do, aside from asking to get it taken down, is to file a legal complaint with Google. Now, I want to, mention a small disclaimer here. The next two tips that I'm going to talk about are some legal options that you can take. By no means is this legal advice, but rather I'm just outlining, the options that you can take in terms of a legal route. So filing a legal complaint with Google. First, you're going to want to go to support.google.com/legal. And here is where you'll find all the information about actually, filing a complaint. Something to keep in mind is that Google has always stood by the right of information, that their searchers deserve to know all of the information about a topic, good, bad, or ugly. So they're not too keen on removing stuff from search results. However, they will remove things that do violate their terms of use or their privacy policies. So the first thing is, copyrighted information. If you own an image and it's being used on another site without your consent, they'll investigate that. If you own content and it's being used somewhere without your consent, they'll investigate that as well. They'll also remove personal information like your social security number if it's anywhere on the web, or credit card information. Something that they will not remove is, information that you want taken down just because you don't like that it's there. They're not going to take down a blog that you wrote years ago just because you're embarrassed by it. Or they're not going to take down an article that you're mentioned in, or a negative review that you're mentioned in, just because you think it's not true. The other legal route that you can take is you can file a DMCA takedown. And, DMCA stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and it was passed to protect copyrighted information on the web. So in order to file a DMCA takedown, first you need to ensure that the work is copyrighted and that you're the copyright owner and have access to the original. So in the case of an image, which we notice a lot with, revenge porn instances, they tend to be selfies. So in the case of a revenge porn image, if you were the one that took that picture, then you are the owner of that image. But you also need to have proof by having the original. The next thing you want to do is determine if that work is infringing on copyright law, so if it's being used without your consent. And then fully document the issues. So again, take all the necessary screenshots that you need to take. Compile links to, where all of that information is located on the web, and fully document the situation and explain, why you feel it's violating, copyright law. The next thing is to actually write up your complaint. There's a number of templates that you can find on the web, as well as a number of filing services that you'll be able to really determine exactly what you want in there. If you do a quick Google search, you'll be able to, find a good template. But basically, you want to provide all the possible information about you as well as the situation. And then you're going to find out who hosts the site. So again, use who.is or another site like that. And then you're going to eventually file the complaint with the appropriate party and, wait to see if it's addressed. Again, for some of those larger websites, they usually have dedicated, people or agents who are in charge of dealing with these types of instances. In the case of a smaller website, you're probably going to be dealing with the website owner or the webmaster. So the first three things that I outlined, asking to have the result removed, filing a complaint with Google, or filing a DMCA takedown, they're all definitely options, but they're not going to work for every situation, especially the legal routes. There's a lot of information on the web that just doesn't fall under those categories. Things like negative reviews or social media posts. The only effective way to minimize negative results and to safeguard yourself from anything negative popping up in the future is to actively build a positive online presence. Even if you do go the legal route, we encourage you to still build an online presence because it will, safeguard you from something negative in the future. And it will also, help to clean up sort of the mess from this initial negative result. So that brings me to, burying that negative result with positive, relevant information. And we talked a lot about this in the last webinar, but I will do a quick review of how you're going to build that information to help it rank. So if you do have, a rip-off report or a nasty blog post ranking for your name, the goal here is that you're going to create positive, relevant content in order to help push that negative result to the second, third, or even the fourth page. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is get your domain name for your name or the term that the negative is ranking for. So if your name's John Smith and when you Google John Smith, the negative ripoff report shows up, then you're going to want to try to get the domain name johnsmith.com. And then once you have your domain name, you want to create a personal website. There's plenty of tools that you can use. We recommend WordPress just because it's very simple to use. It's free, and it's usually it guides you through the process of search engine optimization for your actual website. Then you're going to want to get on social media. So make sure that you're on relevant social sites that are related to your profession, your industry. Make sure that you're sharing things on social media, that you're staying active, that you're filling out all of your profiles, and just really getting a lot of good content out there on the web for your name. Another thing that you can do to create positive content is to start blogging. It is simpler than you think. There are sites, again, like WordPress or Tumblr. A new site that we like, or a relatively new site that we like, is called Medium, which allows you to very easily start blogging basically from day one. So definitely take advantage of those types of tools to get content out there. And then share interesting content. Share content that's related to your industry or something that if someone were to come across it when they're looking you up online would only add credibility, to yourself as a profession. So once you have all of your content, you just want to go through some SEO basics to make sure that it'll actually rank well for your name and will have the best chance of outranking that negative. So a few on-page factors. So these are things that are happening within the actual, page of a website. The first is the architecture or structure. So if you are building a personal website, just make sure it's structured well. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll just take a look to make sure that you're going down the right path. The next thing is keyword and content. So making sure that you're not only building content on these sites, but that you have the necessary keywords to help it rank well. So if you're looking to get content out there ranking for John Smith, you want to make sure that John Smith is appearing on your social media sites and your websites. And then the last thing for on-page SEO is relevancy. Make sure that you're constantly updating your information, posting to social media, adding a new blog or two a month, or updating your website when you have new information. Just keeping it relevant and up to date, and it'll give it the best chance of ranking. And then some off-page SEO things that you can do are, links. A link to a page Google considers as a vote for its credibility. So the more that you link to a page, the better chance it'll rank well. So link to, your social media pages from your blogs and vice versa. And then social sharing, making sure that you're sharing all of your content on social media and encouraging, your followers and your friends to share as well. And by doing all of those things, it'll definitely help all of your content rank well. And again, I did breeze through that a little quickly because we covered it so much on the last webinar. But if you have anything specific that you want to ask, feel free to do so in the chat, or you can hit me up, after the webinar. All of my contact information will be at the end. So the fifth tactic that you can take when dealing with the negative, and, we consider this one of those, cute tactics. It doesn't work every time, but it's definitely something that we've seen work. So I think it's worth mentioning, and that's bumping the result off the first page. So whereas the tip before was to bury it, this one's bumping. So let's say you have a negative article on the Huffington Post, that's been ranking on the first page of your search results for a few years. It's a pretty old article, but you just can't seem to get it to move. So Google, as a search engine, likes to give its searchers the most relevant information. And a large portion of that is, giving searchers a diverse range of search results, as well as a diverse range of relevant search results. So it typically only wants to show one search result from a domain. So one search result from the Huffington Post on the first page. So in theory, if you're able to get another more recent result on the Huffington Post, then you might be able to bump off that negative, outdated result. So it's definitely not a guaranteed tactic, but we have seen it work before, and it might work in your instance. For something like that, you want to look into building content on that website. So in the case of Huffington Post, you might not be able to be mentioned in a full-fledged article, but you can actually blog on the Huffington Post and create a profile there. So definitely go ahead and do that. And for other types of websites, they have different ways that you can submit content. So if you have a question about a specific situation, definitely reach out. So again, before the webinar, we took a look at some of the questions that you guys were asking, and we definitely noticed a theme amongst the, topics that you guys were asking about. So before we jump into the Q&A, I want to go over what you can do in some very specific situations. So the first is, what if I have a negative review? So what if I have, a Yelp, a ripoff report, a pissed consumer, a Google review? What do I do about it? So the first thing is, take it for what it's worth and investigate if it's a real problem with your company. Your gut reaction when you see something negative might be that it's false, or it's that ex-employee that you let go 2 months ago, or it's your competitor who's deciding to post something. And those things might be true, but it could also be a real customer who had a real concern with their business dealings with you. So the first thing you want to do is actually investigate if it could be something, with your company, and use it as a learning experience for making sure that that doesn't happen again and someone else doesn't write a negative. The other thing that you can do about the negative review is, depending on the site, you're going to want to respond to the claims. And again, this is definitely depending on the site. You'll notice that I put here, do not respond to a ripoff report. And I say that because, ripoff reports, aren't removed from the web. By posting on them, you're keeping them relevant, which is something that could actually help it rank in search results. And also, quite frequently, what we see are people respond to ripoff reports in a very emotional manner, in a very aggressive manner, and they end up regretting it, later down the road. And now it's out there and they can't really do anything about it. So I definitely would, proceed with caution if you're thinking about responding to a ripoff report. On the other hand, I would definitely respond to a Yelp. Yelp encourages active reviews, and you're able to actually go in and provide, sort of an explanation of what happened. If someone is talking about, having a bad experience with your customer service team, you should at least be going into Yelp and monitoring them daily and making sure that, everything's being answered and it's coming across in the best manner. So if a potential client were to come across this negative review, it'll look a lot better if you've answered it in a professional way and helped to resolve the issue versus completely ignoring it, or worse, writing something that's very emotional and basically berating whoever wrote the review. Definitely, we're seeing Yelp being used more and more. In fact, we came across a stat the other day that it's actually the most used review site for someone looking for a lawyer. So it just goes to show that, Yelp has moved so far beyond, local restaurants, that it's definitely something you should be paying attention to. And in keeping with that, claim your profiles on your review sites. Sites like Yelp, and I know Glassdoor lets you do this, where you can actually claim the site and say, I am the business owner, and you can usually fill it out with all the relevant information. And, what that's doing is, it's allowing you to monitor the reviews pretty easily. It's also providing another search result for you with positive information about your company. And it's showing, people coming across your profile that you're really engaged and that you care about what people think about your company. And then the last thing that you want to do, and, this is keeping with, if you have something negative, combat it with something positive. The last thing that you want to do is, encourage your customers to write reviews. And I want to be careful here. I'm not saying to encourage your customers to write positive reviews. That would be a tad unethical. But definitely encourage your customers to write reviews. And if you're doing, everything that you should be doing in your company right, then those reviews will most likely be positive anyway. And, encourage them at different access points. If you have an actual storefront, maybe put a little sign up asking for their review. Or if you have a newsletter that you send out, ask for feedback, whether it's good or positive. And if you do get some really good feedback, ask if you can post it to your website. Quite frequently, happy and loyal customers are more than willing to give you positive feedback or write a review on your behalf. They just don't know that they can do it, or that, you would even want them to do it. So, really encourage that and give them that gateway that they can do so. So the next scenario that we see pretty frequently, and again, we see a lot with revenge porn, is, what if I have a negative image? So I mentioned it earlier, but if you do own the image, if it's a selfie, and, most cases of revenge porn are selfies, you can file a DMCA takedown. The other thing that you can do, if you don't own the image or have the original version of the image, you might be able to do another cute trick. Again, this might not work in every instance, but you can definitely try it. And you can actually still leverage copyright laws. So if you have, let's say, the negative result or the, nude images are posted on a blog, you can go into that. You can create a bunch of images that are PG, of course, with your name associated. Maybe a couple headshots, or, you take a couple outdoor pictures, scenery pictures. Post those to the comments of the original blog post that has, your copyrighted image on it, and file a DMCA takedown and basically say, these are my images that are posted in the comments of the forum. And typically, the person who owns the site, they might not want to deal with that situation, and they'll just remove the whole post. Again, it might not work, but you could still try. And, we have seen it work a few times, so it is an option. The third one, which circles back to, the only real way to combat the negative is to post positive, is if you have negative images about you, then you want to post positive images that you want Google to find. So leveraging image-focused sites. Most sites let you post images to them, like, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+. Some definitely cater more to images, like Pinterest and Flickr, Behance. So definitely utilize a lot of those sites and get lots of images on there. And then when you do, make sure that you're filling out all of the titles, the descriptions, and the proper tags so that it has the best chance of ranking well. So if you want it to rank for, John Smith, make sure that you're titling the picture John Smith, or in the description it says, John Smith's headshot. So what do I do if I live in the EU? So about a year ago, they announced they passed the right to be forgotten in the EU. And basically that states that someone has the right to have information forgotten about them on the web. So basically now search engines like Google are being forced to, now offer to their searchers the ability to appeal certain search results to be removed. Now, not every search result will actually be removed. It only has certain guidelines. If you are from the EU or from Argentina and think that you have a case for having this removed, then you're going to want to explore it on Google. If you have an issue with submitting, the proper information with Google, definitely reach out to us and we can sort of walk you through the process or let you know if we think that you even have a case there. But to give you an example of some of the stuff that actually has been removed and hasn't, the first is, from Germany, where unfortunately, a victim of rape, asked to remove a link to a newspaper article about the crime. And fortunately, they removed the page from search results for the individual's name. So that's an instance where, the right to be forgotten was put into place and Google removed it from the search results. The second one is one where they didn't remove it, where they received multiple requests from a single individual who asked to remove 20 links to recent articles about his arrest for financial crimes committed in a professional capacity. We did not remove the pages from search results. So that's an example of where they felt that, it was still falling under the right for people to know. Now, again, to, go back to this, I covered all of these specific instances, but really the only effective way to really minimize negative results is to actively build a positive online presence. So if you're dealing with a negative result or want to safeguard yourself from dealing with one in the future, keep building that online presence and that really strong foundation. And it'll definitely, protect you from something negative in the future and help minimize anything that you have showing up right now. And the other thing I will say is if you do have a negative result, they do require much more content than simply managing your online presence. And that's simply because, you're working against something now. It's not like you're building out your online presence and anything that you get to rank on the first page is considered a bonus. Now you're trying to get something buried onto the second or third page. So you're working against something. So just to keep in mind, you're going to have to create a lot of content to combat some of these negatives. If you do need some help, we're here. Just to run through it really quickly, we have a free do-it-yourself tool that will, sort of take you through the steps of building that online presence and making sure that the content that you're creating is poised to rank well in Google. At the very least, you should sign up for that tool so we can sort of take you through some steps there. The next is our, Head Start service, where we take away some of all the hard work for you. We build out the websites and profiles that you need, and then, we make sure that they're optimized to rank well in Google. And then once you have this solid foundation, we leave you with a custom action plan and the tools that you need to, manage it over time. So we're giving you a head start really in, building out your online presence. And then our third service is our concierge service, where we, do everything with the head start, where we build out that foundation. But then month to month, we're updating and promoting your content to make sure that it's relevant and that you're continuously building an online presence. For most people that are dealing with negatives, this is one of the better services, the concierge, because we're actively working to combat that negative for you and building you up as a thought leader and a really positive presence online. So at the very least, for joining us today, you should sign up for our free personal branding consultation. We'll sit down with you, we'll take a look at your results, and we'll sort of go over your options for, what you can do to really improve your online presence. So if you are dealing with a negative, I definitely recommend that, you sign up for the consultation so that we can take a look and give you some real actionable steps that you can use going forward. And, even if, you don't choose to work with us, you at least have a game plan for what you can do to handle, the negative result. So if you do want to sign up for the consultation, just use that link there. It's bit.ly/BY consultation. And my contact information is at the bottom. If you feel you want to ask me any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. But we're going to go into our Q&A portion of the webinar. So if you do have a question, ask away on Twitter using the hashtag BYWebinar, or you can submit your question into the chat bar. So the first one that we're going to cover is from Lewis. Is posting positive posts in Ripoff Report a good idea? Okay, so we're kicking it off with a very interesting one. So this is definitely a risky tactic, and I'd have to advise against it. If you've ever had to deal with a Ripoff Report, then you know that they tend to rank really well, and that they definitely have a negative connotation. Because, as you go through search results that do have a Ripoff Report, it says it right there in the title, Ripoff Report. And the entire website is dedicated to complaints. So the last thing that you would, want to do is go ahead and actually create Ripoff Reports for yourself. Even if your plan is to create a positive report to outrank the negative one or to bump it off the first page, that doesn't always, work with Ripoff Reports. We've seen multiple ones rank on the first page for someone. In some instances, we've seen up to 4 Ripoff Reports rank on the first page for someone's name. The other thing is that, Ripoff Report doesn't remove anything from its site once you post it. So if you post something now as sort of a cute little tactic and it either doesn't work or you want to take it down in the future, Ripoff Report simply isn't going to take it down. So you're in it for the long haul. So I definitely, overall, I think you'd just be adding fuel to the fire, and I'd really have to advise strongly against it. Okay, so the next question we have is, what is the impact of adding the same content across multiple social media channels? For example, one blog post shared on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Okay, so we covered this in our last webinar, and we've been setting out some info on the topic of duplicate content. So that might be where this question's coming from. To simply answer it, if you wrote a blog post and you're sharing a link to it on your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your Facebook, definitely do that. It won't harm you. And in fact, it will only help you. If you created a piece of content, then absolutely share it across all of your social media channels. Now, duplicate content, and something that you want to be careful about is when you're recopying long forms of text. So taking that blog post and copy and pasting it word for word and putting it on as many sites as possible. That's when you're going to fall into some issues with duplicate content. But, taking that one blog and linking to it from your social media channels, I definitely encourage it, and it's a very good strategy. So next question. Will AOL remove an old 2013 article if asked? Okay, so I just want to, start off my answer by saying, a lot of what I talk about here and a lot of questions that you probably have about your specific situation are going to fall into what I call the gray area. It's very hard to be definitive on a lot of this stuff because there's a lot of subjectivity. In the case of old articles, we don't typically see them removed. You can appeal to the author directly, and if you can prove that the information is correct, he might have some leeway in having it removed or at least corrected. It definitely can't hurt to reach out to, whatever site you're trying to get it off of. At the worst case, they say no. But if they aren't able to remove it, it's when you're really going to have to go ahead and start building some positive content to combat it. Okay, so next question is from Shannon, who wants to know, what is a ripoff report? Okay, Shannon, I apologize because I know that I've been mentioning them quite frequently throughout the webinar, so if I wasn't clear on what they were, I apologize. But basically, ripoff report is a website where you can post a complaint about a person or a company. They can be posted by anyone anonymously. And as I mentioned, Ripoff Report as a website, won't remove something from their site for any reason. So if something's posted, they won't take it down. So in turn, they can be very difficult to deal with. And if you do have to combat one for ranking your name, you are going to have to create a lot of content in order to bury that one. Okay, so next question. James asked, I have dozens of strong news articles. None show up on Google or not near the top. Only negatives do. How can I move the positive articles to the top? Okay, so this is good. Half the battle's done. You have good content out there about you now. It's a matter of getting it to rank well now. So considering it's a news article, there's only a few things that you can do to help it rank well because you can actually go in and improve the SEO of the actual article. But the first thing that you want to do is to keep the article relevant. So I suspect why some of the good stuff might not be ranking above the negatives is because the negatives are just more recent. So what I would do is encourage people to comment on your positive articles. By adding comments to it, you're keeping it relevant and you're indicating to Google that it is, a relevant article that people are sharing and commenting on, and therefore it could help it rank a little bit higher. The other thing, again, is to share it on social media. Try a post for Throwback Thursday, linking to the article you were mentioned in, and maybe someone else will comment on it. Another thing that you can do is write a blog post that summarizes the article you were in and link to it. And also, if you have a press page on your website, or if you have a website and don't yet have a press page, make one, and then put a link to it there, as well as any other positive articles that you would want someone, to read when they're looking up information about you. So I would definitely encourage doing some work to help boost those positive articles higher, and also building out additional positive content and making sure that it's structured well so it'll, have the best chance of ranking. So next question. If you have a negative article in the New York Post, a publication that will be very difficult to knock off from the top of Google results, what is my best solution? And who is the best person to contact at the publication to try to get it removed? So I would definitely say to, do what I said earlier, and that's, creating relevant, positive content about yourself to try to outrank the New York Post article. I won't lie, and it's going to be difficult, and it will require a lot of content and ongoing work. But you want to start doing that work now so that you can build that solid foundation of positive content and outrank the article in the future. And in the meantime, if you do want to try to get it taken down, I would try to reach out to the author first. If not, the main editor. For some of the larger sites, I don't know specifically if New York Post has it, but sometimes they do have a contact person that you can reach out if you have these types of concerns. So just look into that. And I would actually have to, really take a look at the article itself to understand the circumstance. If it's just an article that you don't like, they probably won't take it down. But if it's something that's, proven to have a false information in it, or if you found you were misquoted or misrepresented, then they may be more likely to correct it or take it down. So if you want to send me an email, I can definitely take a look at it. Okay, so the next question. How do you remove a news video story? Okay, so similar to images, videos do tend to rank pretty well, but you treat them the same as any other negative results. Again, I need to see the video to fully understand the circumstance. But if the publication's not willing to remove it, then you want to combat it with positive content, meaning creating positive videos and other sorts of content to help outrank that negative video. Okay, so we're going to take a few more questions. Again, if you have any, feel free to put them in the Twitter chat, BY webinar, or in the chat bar. These questions are great, so definitely keep them coming. Okay, so the next one is from Nicholas. How do you deal with a situation where the person who posts the negative content on you is actively working to keep the content high in a Google search? Okay, so I am sorry that you have to go through this. And unfortunately, we see this a lot, where it's a vendetta situation. So someone is, going ahead and actively writing negative stuff about you online and trying to tarnish your image. The first thing that you should be doing right now is, again, combating that negative work that he or she is doing with positive content. It might seem overwhelming, especially if you feel that, they're actively working against you. But definitely start building that foundation now because, they might get tired out, or you may be able to create more positive than he can negative. So at the very least, by getting some more positive stuff out there, it's providing a better picture of who you are for anyone that's coming across it. Definitely don't just sit back and let them win and keep posting all this negative without answering it with positive. The other thing I would say is, because it sounds like, they're not going to stop, I would take a look at what they're posting and see if it's information that could qualify to be removed. Again, I don't know the exact situation, so I don't know the types of results that we're looking at. But if you want to go ahead and schedule that free consultation, we can take a look and at least, give you some options. So the next question. Okay. I've had old negative items come up almost a year after on my first page. I have other information out there and I'm currently a Brand Yourself customer. Okay, great. So it sounds like, you're using our DIY tool, which is great. That tool will take you through the steps of building your online presence. So that means that you're, building all this content yourself. So I would, in this case, recommend, signing up for that consultation so that, we can take a look at the content you're creating and make sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can to combat that negative, and discuss, some options for what you can additionally be doing. You might be dealing with a type of negative, like I mentioned, that can be particularly difficult. So you might just need to put some more manpower and effort behind it in order to get it down. But we're definitely happy to take a look and, see what else can be done about it. The next question is from Greg. Can you suggest which combination of keywords people may use to find all of your online listings, and which sites are ranking in the top 5 or top 10? Okay, so I think you mean, how do you find out what information is out there about you, and what are the terms people are using to search for you? So what I would do is to first Google your name. Google the name that's on your business card, your resume, the name in your email signature. These are the names people are searching for you with because it's the name that you're giving them. So if, it's in your email signature, they're probably, directly copy and pasting it into a browser like I tend to do. I would also add a few qualifiers to that. So if you're a lawyer that's based in LA, do a few searches of your name lawyer, your name attorney, your name LA, your name Los Angeles, just to get the best picture of what's out there. You're playing out all the searching scenarios that someone might be looking you up under. The other thing I would search for is some common nicknames or even misspellings. So if your name's Christopher and you go by Chris, or if your name's Gerald and you go by Jerry with a G, but people always do Jerry with a J, then definitely search for those as well. And if you go by a middle initial on your resume or on your business card, try it with and without, just to see if there's a variation in the results. In terms of tracking the search results for your name, if you don't already have a Brand Yourself account, it is free to sign up, and we'll actually give you a detailed audit of the results that are ranking for your name, and we'll even send you alerts if any of that changes, so you can stay up to date on everything like that. And basically, it's just a good recon tool to tell you what's out there. Okay, so the next question. For years, I have been talked about negatively for personal shortcomings, and it's all anyone can see online. What can I do? I know I mentioned it before, but really building out all that positive content on, your positive attributes, accomplishments, experience, and your other traits. At the end of the day, if you're able to get some of the positive stuff to rank with or even outrank the negative, then you're giving people looking you up a much better picture of who you are professionally and as a person. And they'll be much more likely to believe that you're not only about the negative stuff that's out there. But if you do have a question about your specific situation that you want me to take a look at, again, sign up for that consultation or drop me a line. Okay, moving on to the next question. When someone Googles my name, the entry for my name with whitepages.com shows up advertising their background checking service. No problem there. However, they also post that I'm 65 years old. This is very in your face and not helpful to me searching for work. What can be done about this? Okay, so for some of these white page listings, there's different types of them, one's white pages and others, Intellius or Spokio. You might have seen them if you search someone or even Google your own name. But basically it details contact information about someone. So think of it like a phone book, but on the web. So the good thing here is that, white pages tend to show up on the first page of search results only when there's not a lot of content out there about the person. So that means, you want to create positive content in order to outrank it. The good thing here is that we've seen these sites easily outranked in the past because they tend to only rank when there's not a lot of really relevant content out there. So it's just a matter of getting that content online before you start seeing them move down. So again, I'd have to take a look at the exact situation, but you should see some movement with that if you start creating positive content for your name. It also sounds like you might be looking for a job and you don't want your age to become a factor. So in this case, you want to build out an online presence that really showcases your professional accomplishments. So build out your LinkedIn and, showcase all the work that you've done in the industry on a personal website or a smaller blog. I can definitely provide some more tips on that in the consultation about, the type of content that you should be creating for your specific purpose. Okay, so we have time for one more question. Let me just go through them. Okay, so this one is from Ralph. A key part of your recommendations hinges around sharing any positive links. For example, a positive Yelp review with my networks on Twitter or Facebook. Is there a risk at annoying my customers by bombarding them and sharing my positive results that solely benefits me but takes up their valuable time? So with everything that you do, whether you're combating a negative or not, building out your online presence is a balancing act. And this deals more with content strategy. You definitely don't want to be too salesy, and you definitely don't want to be doing things only for the sake of search engines. That's so counterproductive. You want to be mindful of search engines and be mindful of effectively promoting your business, but you also want to be mindful of your customers too. So, they're following you on Twitter and Facebook, or they're subscribing to your newsletter for a reason. They might have found you interesting, or they want to learn more about your company or, your offerings, or they think that, you're a thought leader in the industry and they think that you're going to provide a lot of really good information. So create a balance there in the type of content that you're creating. So let's say you're a lawyer. You can share industry articles, information about local law changes or a ruling that might affect them, and then mix all of that great content in with information about you specifically. So take all of that content that they're going to find really interesting and mix it in with an article that you were mentioned in or a great customer review. I think there's definitely a way that you can balance it so it's not too salesy and you're not stuffing it down their throat, and do it in a way that they appreciate. You are a business, and they realize you will talk about your brand, and that's part of the reason that they're probably following you in the first place. So just finding that balance and you should be good. Okay, so that's it with the questions. If I wasn't able to get to your question, definitely feel free to send me an email, or if you have a negative, I cannot stress enough the consultation. We'll take a look, we'll give you some tips, and hopefully that you can leave with a much better game plan than you had going in. So if you want to sign up for that consultation, just type this link into the search bar. It's bit.ly/BY consultation, or feel free to email me directly. And then this week, we actually have our next Brand Yourself webinar, and we're going to be covering the topic of how to grow your business with your personal brand. So how you can start to see more clients and sales leads and potential customers by building out your personal brand online. So we'll be covering all of that fun stuff. And it's this Thursday, January 15th at 2 o'clock. Definitely sign up. You can type this into the URL, bit.ly/Brand Yourself Webinar. We'll also be sending out an email about it tomorrow. So keep a lookout for that if you want to register. Again, if you're not able to make it with us on Thursday, then definitely sign up for the recording. And we will see you at the next webinar. Thanks for listening, everyone.